This is Hannibal here from thehannibaltv.com, and I am with Hugo Savinovich, who was actually just telling me a funny story about Japan. They would often mispronounce your name there.
Yes, he will go into the dressing room. The announcers would always go into the dressing room. Hugo-san, last name. I say Savinovich, and he would say Savinovich, Savinovich, and then it was live. And as soon as he went to say Hugo, he would say Savinovich, and this was live back then. So it was always like I knew it was coming, so it was funny.
And for any fans that might not know who you are by some reason, although I think most wrestling fans do, former WWE Spanish announcer. Every time someone went through that announce table, you were one of the guys getting out of the way. WWC Puerto Rico commentator, AAA, backstage
Lucha,
work,
Lucha Underground first season also.
and you operate a very popular Spanish wrestling news site.
Yeah, Lucha Libre Online is the number one in Spanish. We have close to 610,000 followers, 260,000 in YouTube, about 70,000 in Instagram, and we just started tweets. So we keep it real. We love wrestling. We don't sacrifice the passion for a like. We're always straight shooters.
And the reason I contacted you because yesterday somebody brought to my attention, I think you might have the only interview ever done with Invader about why he ended up killing Bruiser Brody, and it was done in Spanish, so I didn't actually understand what you guys were saying, but it seemed like it was done shortly after it happened. He had a baby on his lap. How did you get that interview to start
Yeah.
off?
Okay. I was the big guy there, the producer and the host of the English and Spanish shows in Puerto Rico. This was such a sad, horrible thing that happened. Frank Bruiser Brody and Jose Gonzalez Invader were very close friends of mine, so I was like right in the middle. The widow asked me to do the eulogy, and up to this day, I still cry about that. Frank and I were involved in some out of the ring stuff. That's when I was back crazy in the island. I think with Frank and with Haku, the Bushwhackers, and the Fabulous Kangaroo Duncan, and all the guys, Pierre Martel, Jack Evans, Freeboy Larry Sharp. We were the real pirates of the Caribbean. We got away with stuff that today you will not even think of surviving one of them. So when this tragedy happened, it just shook the whole wrestling foundation. Wrestling was the hottest thing in Puerto Rico, and when Frank was killed, it was horrible from the human aspect, from the industry. There was no winners here, and I just told Carlos and Jamaica, I said, listen, we cannot ignore this thing. It's just like until tonight, finally they changed the graphic of Goldberg facing Strowman, which was ridiculous because I think it was an insult to the fans, not saying, hey, Roman couldn't make it because he was in the building, but he didn't want to take a chance of his health. So I said to them, I would like to do a promo, and I called Jose and I said, listen, I would like to do one. Everybody's seeing the papers, and this was just also after his little daughter had drowned. So there was so much stuff happening. So I said, listen, somebody has to do it. I'm always being like neutral. I don't like, even when I do my Lucha Libre online lives, I always try to stay, down the line. And I said to him, listen, I'm not going to do you any favors. I'm going to call it just like it is, and you answer it if you want to. And when I asked him, I said, they haven't seen you in wrestling, and the case was going to go to trial. Then I believe that was the same week that it was already on trial. I'm not too sure, but I said, give me a chance. That was uncut. It was unedited, and the lawyer, I guess, wasn't too happy that he did that with me. But I think I was fair. So I did that, and I said, well, we've seen the pictures in the newspapers and all of that. I said, what is what is happening? And he just answered. He said, you could check my police record. I have never been even arrested, never was involved, always been just a wrestler. And when the case it's over, I'm going to be an innocent man. That's what he said. And I asked him a couple of things about he not being wrestling, and he answered plain. He wasn't nervous. At the time, I was a little bit concerned because of the fact that when he mentioned about, listen, I've been going through a lot of things, and people know that my daughter drowned, and I lived in the same area. It was a gated community, and when they were celebrating the birth, they're going to celebrate the birthday, they were painting it was called North Mansions. I lived on the other side, and for 1 minute, that's like the family from Stu Leonard, that they have all this ads because they said 30 seconds, you might lose your kid forever. And they were doing all this, and then he thought that she was watching the little girl, and she thought the same thing, and then she gone, and he just went through the whole neighborhood carrying the baby. So I knew it was a very delicate situation. And like I said to you before, Frank and him were my friends. I'm not excusing what happened. It was horrible. It should have never had happened. And I believe that if Jovic and Carlos were not happy with whatever Frank was doing, Frank was like in the old Western movies, when one of the shooters comes in and he just takes everybody out. And trust me, went with him so many things that we should not be alive. Myself and with Haku also. So it was a matter of just having him finish. I thought the way it should have happened, it should have been just finish the weekend and then just don't book him again. But the way this was driven, I believe it was not about just the one thing situation. I think this went from the old WWF stuff, and something happened there. And when I interviewed him, I asked him, and he said, I'm innocent, and I did not dig for but a follow-up question on that. I just said, and what's going to happen now? Are you going to retire? Because remember, when this happened, it was just going to court, and he said, first we have to go to court, and I believe that I'm going to be innocent. And of course, as we saw it happen, the jury found them not guilty. But at the time, this was very, very, to me, it was very emotional because of the fact that I was talking to the man that was there, where him and Frank were together in the shower, and Frank is no longer with us. So, like I said to you, this up to today, starting 3 months into 2020, fourth month. I still have nightmares about that because I just think it should have never had happened, and it was just a horrible, horrible situation. And in Puerto Rico, up to today, has nightmares about that. And I don't believe, regardless that Jose came out innocent, that he should feel like that was it, because we're missing somebody. And as a human being, you can never be content just being out of the court. There was one of our guys that is no longer with us. So I don't think wrestling was the same in Puerto Rico. I worked so hard to get it going again, and I did as a producer and the microphone guy and the narrator. All that, it took me about 1.5 years. But I think up to today the wound is still open, and I'm always, even when I talk to Jose, I'm always careful when I do anything with him that I don't like any blood angles and stuff like that, because I believe that it just brings back so many memories. I'm very careful about doing anything with him in Puerto Rico because I think the island has been through so much stuff. Everything is in peace. They have a hurricane, now they're going through this stuff. So I would only do this with you. If you check, I very seldom talk about this because it is just a no-win situation. And then so many people tell you stories in a documentary, and documentaries are in the business of making money. And I wish that some of the companies will have the writers that the documentaries have, because we will have better storylines. It insults me to see what they put there when I just explained to you that it was an old stadium thing with the cages where baseball players sit, and then there was a big wall and a double glass window door that you have to go open it up
So the
tight.
door was double glass. That was one thing that we had wrong, right? With Dutch, you
Yes,
said the door was not plastic, so you could just see light through it, though,
that's
right?
it. That's
Yeah.
it. So you could hear a noise, but with these guys that they tell you all this crap, they just want to be like part of the story. And to me, it's an insult to Frank to try to say this happened, insulting his memory because that did not happen. They whatever they saw after the whole thing was over. They never got the weapon. Nobody has ever found the weapon. Nobody could see. Only two guys knew what happened. One is with God right now, Frank, and the other one is Invader. And of course, he was found not guilty. So to me, it's an insult when the other guys tell stories. How could you? The only other guy that actually heard from Frank was my friend, the commissioner, Dr. Hector Gonzalez, who is a honest, decent man. And he called me crying because we didn't have like beepers at that time. And he was crying. And I had done an interview early. I left because I usually, with my job, I would work like to 4, 6 in the morning and I was the only guy that could get away with using the newscast from Noticentro to do like bring one of those old tapes and put in a part so we could have the angle for the Sunday show. And the ratings were so good that I had permission from the owners that they had to let me use that, and they put the taping. I will do the play-by-play live onto that. So I will do an early interview and then take care of that video and get up and then make sure that at 11 o'clock in the morning I was at the studio of the station. So when the segment came, I already had the tape ready. They'll put live, and I will do that stuff live. So when I'm home, I never thought that this phone call was going to tell me that I cried. And he said to me, Dr. Gonzalez, my friend, told me, Frank said to him, tell my wife and my kid that I love them. And that coming out from Frank, was a very rough guy, but when he loved you, he loved you. As a matter of fact, I have the story on my book. It's not in English yet, it's in Spanish. And, with my wife's death, I don't know when I'll be able to do it in English, but I'll give you this scoop about the story. I was doing the babyface angle, and I was working the main event with Carlos Colon against Barabbas, who had stolen my troop of guys. And it was Bruiser, Brody, and Barabbas against Carlos Colon and myself. And at one point, I thought a crazy idea. He was working the trapeze muscle, how tall Frank was. And I just thought it was going to be funny. I went in and I bit Frank in the ass. I bit him. And it wasn't like a work. It was more like, like a shoot rib, but playing with fire, and he was like one of my closest friends. And when I did that, he did not think it was funny. And he said, Hugo, I'm going to kill you. I knew he was going to kick my ass. So I tried to stay away from him the whole time. And he was after me. Frank he taught me how to do those Japanese squats. And he had me doing like 700. Frank will do like 1,500. This guy was unstoppable. The only other guy that could really stop him was Haku, and I was managing Haku. And I saw those guys going at it, that it was like when you are the manager, you're right next, you see those chops, the punches, the chair shots, those were animals. So I knew what was coming to me. So I was running for my life. Carlos Colon got in the middle, intercepted him, but he was so upset. He got Carlos against the ring post, and Carlos told me to go home. So I did a couple of Mexican topes, did the top rope flying body press, 1, 2, 3, and I should have known that something was happening, because the whole Coliseum of Guaynabo went like a silent, and it was Brody with the old heavy metal chair. He hit me in the back so hard that it was like, one of those Richard Pryor jokes or Eddie Murphy where like your legs say goodbye. My leg said, okay, we're not going to be with you, Hugo. Bye. And it was just like a short circuit, boom. And from there, and they had to carry me into the dressing room because I couldn't get up. He went to the dressing room and he held my face and said, sorry, but you were effing with me, and I don't like that. And for like, I don't know how many years I had I was just going to like some kind of a paralysis with a steel shot, so I know how Frank will do. So there were so many memories on that, and like I said, the widow told me to the eulogy that I have so many mixed feelings about this. I love Frank. I have love for the Invader, and it's just a horrible, 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 horrible situation. You wish you could go back and somehow like change it. Like if you were booking a finish and they just said, no, this should not happen. But it did happen, and it should have never happened. And this is what I teach the guys that are taking over the business, the new guys that have the money but they don't know about our business, that they should always be careful to see when you're having personal rivalries in the dressing rooms. You got to stop it, because some of these guys, they love to instigate this crap. And you know, I'm always afraid that if we don't learn from this bad stories, sad stories, that somebody else, you know, is going to do something horrible and stupid, because our guys and girls, they people don't know how hard is the business of a wrestler. You know, they just see you doing the promo, the moves, and they don't know what's happening the next 23 and a half hours of the day, personal problems and all the pressure that beautiful people have. Wrestlers and are beautiful people, but with a lot of problems.
What do you think about what Tony Atlas has said, that he claims if he didn't get off the island, something could have happened to him, and he booked his own flight to get off the island? Do you think
This
he
is
was legit?
Yeah, this is. I love Tony, but this is crap. This is crap. You know, people live their own fantasy sometimes, and Tony's a good guy. But what insults me is that they're embellishing something, and by doing that, they're not respecting the memory of Frank. You know, we have a fallen hero there. You know, and I come to you and I said to you, brother, I mean, you know, Invader's my friend. He was my friend. The widow, I did the eulogy. I still, to this day, I'm a pastor, evangelist. I'm an apostle. I'm a man of God. I'm not a violent person. I do not excuse what happened, and I'm horrified that it happened. I was not aware. If I would have been aware, I'm telling you right now, I would have had Frank rather just leave the place. I would have paid him whatever they owed him for that weekend out of my money, and I would have said, Frank, let me pay you for the shot tomorrow, and I'd rather see you go tomorrow. I would have done anything. If I would have known that there was a little bit of heat out, this was not like a, you know, the way they painting it, you know, they painting like this was like, you knew the storm was coming. No, I mean, this guys, Jose and Frank, they had that ambience. If you knew Jose and you knew Frank, that this is the way they operated. You know, Frank, promoters were afraid of Frank. I mean, I got stories that I will never reveal because I love the guy, but I could tell you just one off the bat. He almost didn't make it of a trip to Japan. And he told me the story. So the football people were afraid of Frank. Vince McMahon was afraid of Frank. You know, he was one of my best friends. And he almost put me in a wheelchair with a chair shot he gave me in the back. Frank was strong, so strong, he could destroy you. So to me, if I would have known anything, that just the remote idea that something like that would have happened, as a man of God, I could tell you right now, out of my own money, I wouldn't have paid Frank, because I've done that. I worked in places, brother. I'm from South America. I promote shows in places, and I've done stuff. I manage guys, and you know my story, in places that other people will not even dare to go.
Oh yeah.
So I know what is danger, and I had often just gone to the place and packed the things for the guys and said, "This is the money. It's my money. I'd rather see you go right now." And I've taken them to the airport with just whatever they have on, and I have made sure they got on the plane. And I said to them, "Do not come back to this place. Don't come back to this country, because you know I just love life." And that's not like 23 years ago I became an evangelist, but that was even way before that, when I was doing drugs and all that. There was always something inside me that we are a family, and we might not like everybody, but that doesn't mean that we don't take care of each other. I think that we if one thing we have to learn with all this stuff that is happening is that we are a family, and we have to learn to love each other, even if we don't like each other. We are a family, so I still believe in that. And Tony, that is crap. Nothing would have happened to him, especially Tony. Tony, they love Tony. Tony, and remember, this is happening where now there's such a huge scandal that they were promoters from they were not promoters, reporters from the big channels, from the variety shows. We had more reporters in Puerto Rico knocking doors. We had the whatever technology they had back then. They had cameras out of where I lived, because I lived close to where the Invader lived. They had stuff. They had helicopters. Whatever. Listen, that is crap, and that insults me, because I think that Frank deserves better. And I'm not saying that you cannot talk about something like that, but if it's not true, just please leave it alone, because it is horrible.
And the last thing I'll ask you about it, I saw an interview that Savio did with Jim Cornette about it. I'm not sure if you ever saw that, but Savio said that they never put on any more wrestling events in that stadium again, when I know for a fact I've wrestled in that stadium. They did put more events on. Do you have any idea why you think Savio would have said that?
I have no idea, and I promoted that stadium after, so that is also not true. We had events there. The true fact was that it took over a year and a half to get the territory back, and that people in Puerto Rico still up to today, they are very sad of what happened. And at any place where you have a court and a decision and the jury found them innocent, you know, is innocent. Has people forgotten it? No. Was there any way that the company could have stopped it? I believe Javic and Carlos could have stopped it by just paying Frank before that last shot, and just not have him back, because when you don't have peace, it's something that's going to happen. And I'm not saying that you should have a crystal ball to foresee something bad that happened. But if they knew the information that things were that bad, which, like in my case, I was there at 7:00 before I left, and at 7:00 I was doing stuff, and I did not see anything. I talked to Frank that same night, and as a matter of fact, we had some other conversation that I cannot talk about it, right? Should not be discussed. But anyway, it was just man to man, and I remember.
Didn't they drive to the town together the night before too, or something like that? Like,
yeah, it was like, if there was something, to me, it's like, if anybody had any idea of what happened or what was going on, it was Carlos, Javic, and Invader. And if they didn't stop it, and we didn't see anything like that, like boom, like you know there was going to be a storm happening. But I'm just saying that the only thing that I regret is that should have never happened. And I wish that they would have paid him and just not book him again. Because with Frank, there was, once Frank made up his mind, he didn't care if you were Vince McMahon or Javica or Colon or the Invader or Hugo Savinovich or Abdullah the Butcher or Stan Hansen, you name it, you F with him. And Frank only knew one thing, and he was gonna go for you. That's it. When he loved you, he loved you. But when you mess with him, man, that's not the guy you wanted to mess with. And there were so many other stories that I was with Frank that I don't even know today how we walked out alive. That's what I tell you. I tell you things that the name of the movie Pirates of the Caribbean was little compared to what the guys, the wrestlers, the boys, and you worked there, that when wrestling was hot in Puerto Rico, you used to get away with stuff that was unreal. And Frank, they loved Frank. I think that Frank, as a crazy babyface, he could have done thousands and thousands of dollars for Carlos and Javica. It was just such a horrible loss in every aspect that this was not dealt in a correct way. That's why I'm so careful when I'm in control of a company in a new territory, and that's the first things that I teach the new talent, the guys that are going to be the promoters and everything, not to let this crap start building, because once it starts building, you never know what's going to happen, and it's very, very sad.
And it seems like today WWC Puerto Rico is pretty much all but dead from the pictures I've seen of some of their recent crowds. I don't even know if they had 100 fans. What's the status of them these days?
The sad part is that Epico and Primo, Orlando and Eddie Colon, they are working hard. They got Ray Gonzalez back on, but not Eddie and Orlando or Epico and Primo, but like Ray and the other guys are still thinking like 25 years ago, and we have a new era, and it's when you are surrounded by when you don't have one vision, it becomes a division. And that is the sad part. One of the worst production that you could see, and they're on the top station in Puerto Rico that is also seen in the States with WAPA America and on the Caribbean islands. But it's so sad that besides what I'm talking to you right now, I do not report on it, because it is so sad. And I spent like 15 years there and did nothing but money, and we created some of the greatest shows. The anniversaries were like before the Wrestlemania started, we had the anniversario shows, and we had like 3 days and drawing 25, 30,000. I still have one that nobody has done at one night with the closed circuit and big old, antennas. We had the San Juan, Ponce, and Maya West, 3 simultaneous shows at the same night in closed circuit, and done over 30,000 fans, and used to sell out sometimes the Stadium Lubriel, that infamous stadium where that tragedy happened. Consecutive Saturdays sold out, and the shows were doing so much money, and Coca-Cola and all these big brands were paying so much money. And remember that when I was married to Wendy, that they were starting the Rock and Wrestling Connection with MTV. Vince Jr. wanted me to start with him, and I said, Vince, it's not a good idea, because you have my wife as your champion, and then if we're getting the same checks from you, when you get upset with one of the two, you're gonna fire the two of us, and then there's no checks coming in. And as 3 years went by, that's what happened with the first screw job that it was in Montreal. It was the Spider Moolah deal with Wendy at the Garden. And by the way, Moolah was one of my best friends too. So it's all a crazy world. But it's a shame that Puerto Rico. I do once a year. I do a show. I bring stars. I don't know what's going to happen with when I have June 13th. I have Demon Mania and have the NWO guys announced, and have the Ring of Honor World Champion, and have Kennedy. And I spend more money on the lights and the screens and everything, because I want to give the people at least once a year the feeling that they had for the big shows, and were the Flairs and the Harley Races and the Briscoes and the Funks, the Randy Macho Man Savage and Bruno Sammartino, and the Pastores of Nueva Zelanda, the Bushwhackers, all these guys, Haku, and it was Abdullah the Butcher, and all these guys were selling out the building. I want to give them once a year, and then whatever half of the profit, I leave it in the island for places that feed the school children, the elderly. So I love the island. The island, I'm Ecuadorian, but that's like my second country. And I feel for them that having one of the best wrestling territories, the lack of responsibility of Javica and Carlos, the lack of leadership, have destroyed what was the number one company of wrestling, not just in Puerto Rico, but at the time when they had an NWA convention meeting there, Flair was the champion. Puerto Rico was one of the top territories in the world. And it's so sad to see and I wish Eddie and Orlando the best, because these guys are doing their best, but they're having to go against such a horrible reputation. And it's such a shame, because the fans in Puerto Rico love wrestling, and they love the World Wrestling Council, which, by the way, we instituted that name, World Wrestling Council. Vince also stole the Universal Champion. We had the Universal Champion. It was recognized by NWA when Ric Flair fought Carlos, and the winners of that match, NWA Champion, World Wrestling Champion, was going to become the Universal Champion. So that's on the books. It was done, and Vince just named the Universal Champion, heck with it. And also the company in Mexico also named the Universal Champion, and they took our name, Consejo Mundial de Lucha. Mexico just took it. It's like, it's such a shame that, I mean, you got like 9 writers and just one brand, and you still got to steal something that it was already there for years. Just stupid things.
What are your predictions for WrestleMania to close this off? I know you follow this for your own news.
Yes, I cannot. I'm going to do the reports from after the show, and the only thing that's going to change for me is I'm not going to judge the quality of the matches, because I really respect the fact that the boys and girls, they risk their lives to go and do that. So I'm going to be very generous on the matches, because I know that, and I put on my live shows that I had texts from wives of the stars, of 3 of them, that they were like praying, and they actually prayed for them. They were scared because they didn't know how their loved one was going to come back from that. So to me, I'm going to judge to see by Vince doing this, and I'm going to trust what he said, and Triple H, that they did it because the whole world is on crisis and they wanted to entertain the people. I'm going to trust them on that, but I'm going to be watching more on what they did creatively. And I'm going to be very generous with the talent, because no people, all the pressure in the world. Some of the wives didn't want them to go there. So I'm going to be generous on that, and hopefully we'll be surprised. I'm expecting something good, a classic from Edge and Randy, because those 2 guys, like Stone Cold said, it's going to be an instant classic with a silent symphony. I think he said that in English. And how they produced the Boneyard match. Undertaker is always a pro. AJ is one of the best guys, good people. And see what they do with the Cena and Bray, and thinking that I know John, I hope that somebody has the heart to do the right thing for Bray. That's all I'm going to say.
And the last thing as we close off here, Haku told me recently that he's not sure if he would still be arrested if he ever came back to Puerto Rico due to, I guess, some of his barroom antics there. Do you think if he came back, they would hassle him still, or is that forgotten?
I don't think, because it's a Commonwealth, I don't think that has expired. The other things, I was involved with him in a couple of things. That guy saved my life. Well, maybe next time. There was a riot that Bruce Lee looked like a little kid compared to the stuff that my eyes saw Haku do. The cops went under the ring in this little town. I think it was Las Piedras, the name of the town. The Rocks, Las Piedras. And we did something. I come into the ring and we beat up Carlos Colon, and there was a riot, and the cops went under the ring, and they were coming into the restroom. The boys had left, because there was only like the last match, so they wanted to go back into San Juan. It was like a Friday night show, and we were like alone, just Haku and me and Carlos, whoever was working there, and the referee. And the cops went under the ring, and Haku said, "Follow me," and with 2 chairs and one, he was just knocking people left and right. One like a hammer just split me open in the back, and he held me so I don't fall. You just go for the knees and the head, boom, 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 and he was chopping guys like the Bruce Lee movie. I've never seen somebody do so many spin kicks, boom, 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 and just people flying all over the place. And he said to the car, I ran into the car, and like in the movies, I left the other open, and he was kicking people out, hitting people with chairs, and I pulled the car in. He just dove in the back of the car, and as we were pulling up, boom, boom, there were some shots, and the back glass just shattered, and we made it. We made it. That guy, I would put Haku against anybody. The guy with the biggest heart, but this guy is a killing machine. Haku will protect your life if he's your brother, but if you come against him, he will not stop. I don't care if you have a gun or a rifle. Haku will go forward, and you better stop him before he gets close to you. If he gets close to you, that's it. You're gone.
And where can the fans follow you on social media if they want to know more about your news reports or follow you in
Yeah,
general?
like for instance, tomorrow or whenever whenever something happens with Raw, SmackDown, anything, any big event, you go to Lucha Libre online. Of course, I do it in Spanish, but when they're chatting and it's an English question, I will definitely talk English to them, and we keep it clean. We're not in favor of one group. If something happens that it's great, we'll do the New Japan reports at 4 in the morning, or we'll do something from Mexico. And I'm always having interviews with Kenny Omega, with all these guys. I keep it real. I love the game, the wrestling game. I am not a hater. I love wrestling. I have no issues with WWE. I just want them to produce a good show, and hopefully they will do that tomorrow and Sunday.
Very good. And I really appreciate you talking to us to clear some of that stuff up. And very sorry about the passing of your wife and all the hard times you've been dealing with lately.
Yes, and that's what I keep doing. I want this virus to be defeated, so I could go back. I gotta make money. I got orphanages that I have to support. I got young kids. I am also the sponsor of the international women that are in jail in Panama. Because you got Americans, you got Europeans that they don't have families there. So I am like their only connection to lady pastors that are from my council, and whatever they need. Don't ask me how, but we make it happen, and we make sure they have what they need every month. And so I need to work, because I don't have like a full-time contract. I only work when I produce and when I do the shows. And I'm also lately doing Spanish, the video game, the e-gamers. I'm like
Oh, cool.
I'm starting to do that, and there's so much money in that. So I'm working on deals so I could be their worldwide Spanish play-by-play guy, and also TV and live events. There's also another project coming down. I cannot talk about it, but it's going to be in the States about wrestling, and soon you will hear about it. They're talking to me. So Lucha Libre AAA is going to be expanding. Be on the lookout. Conan and Dorian are working on more contracts with AAA and with the alliances with AEW. Of course, we missed out Rey of Reyes. I was going to do the play-by-play on Kenny Omega defending the Mega title against Laredo Kid, which is, when it happens, is going to be one heck of a performance. So just be on the lookout. There's more wrestling happening. It is not just AEW or WWE or Impact Wrestling or Ring of Honor. There are some good things happening around the world, and we just got to help these other groups to get better so we can have more talent and enjoy the future of wrestling.
Thank you for watching the Hannibal TV. Please like this video if you enjoyed it, and click the subscribe button to not miss any of our latest shoot interviews, match videos, or news updates. Support us on patreon.com for $1.99 a month to watch our full shoot interviews ad-free and help our channel grow. Follow us on Twitter at the Hannibal TV for instant updates.